Hi and welcome to Creating Cadence, a podcast for life and work in motion. I'm your host, Bondesio, and I help high achievers, creative thinkers, and purpose-led business owners to transform their approach to life, work, and business so they can activate more of their potential, make impactful change, and lead meaningful work lives without burning out. The aim of the podcast is to explore how to work well and live well at a cadence that's more sustainable for us, despite this fast-paced world we live in. Its purpose is to champion fresh ideas around creativity, culture, digital well-being, innovation, productivity, sustainability, and the future of work. This is episode 82, the 5th of season 13, published in June 2025. The theme for this season of the podcast is sustainable business approaches and regenerative flexible working practices. And in today's episode, I chat with Lara Harrison, the Managing Director of Superstar PAs, who has made flexible working a key part of her business model for herself, her clients, and the associates who form part of her team. But first, some updates from me. So quite big news for my June is that the Creating Cadence podcast turns 5 this month. It started from humble beginnings as an experiment back during the pandemic. What you might not know is that I'm actually an incredibly shy person, and video was and is not really my bag. But I thought I'd give audio a go instead. And in June 2020, I could not have imagined that I would get to the point where I have now published the 82nd episode of the Creating Cadence podcast. I feel quite emotional saying that, and it's taken a long time to get here, but that's part of how I roll with Cadence. It's not about the speed, it's about finding the pace that works for you, so you can build a consistent practice over time. The podcast is still very much a passion project. It doesn't scale, but it's something that I love doing. And from the feedback I've received over the years, it's something that other people apparently enjoy listening to and learning from, too. Back then, after a year of making the podcast, I had set myself the challenge of reaching 100 episodes. But it takes a lot of work to produce and market a podcast, even now with the help of AI tools, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed. I realized then that I'd burn out again if I tried to publish something every week. So early in the experience, I decided I would publish only 3 seasons a year, with 6 episodes each, published every 2 weeks, as that's a more manageable, sustainable cadence for me. And here we are 5 years later. I still have a way to go before I make 100 episodes, but what I have gained, aside from more confidence in front of the microphone, is lovely listeners in more than 30 countries, and also a lovely podcast sponsor. I've been a Magic Mind ambassador since January 2025, and I've shared a lot about the productivity and health benefits of Magic Mind in other episodes. But one of the many reasons I'm happy to endorse this product is because they put their money where their mouth is when it comes to ensuring their mental performance shots meet their high expectations every time. Magic Mind's mission is to make the best performance beverage on the planet for creators, and their goal is to go well beyond industry standards in making it. As part of their promise, the Magic Mind team sources only high-quality ingredients from the world's best suppliers. They also rigorously test every ingredient before each production run, and they then test every batch once it's made, and they also inspect every bottle by hand. Everything is also documented, so you can even request certificates of analysis if you're curious. Another part of their promise is a robust money-back guarantee. They will refund 100% of your order cost, no questions asked, and you don't even need to send the bottles back. If you're interested in trying out this little bottle of green goodness, you can get up to 48% off your subscription using the code CadenceAPR. Head to magicmind.com/CadenceAPR. And one last bit of news is that last week I got to celebrate World Environment Day on the 5th of June at the B Corp Festival on the Wellbeing Farm. I got to meet, hang out with, and learn from lots of lovely people, all supporting sustainability and doing business better. It was such an amazing day. I came back feeling so invigorated about what other people are doing and also charged up about my own sustainable business journey too. Now, Celia Gaze, the founder and CEO of the Wellbeing Farm, is the instigator of this B Corp Focus Festival, which has been running for a few years now. And you may remember that a while back I interviewed Celia about conscious business practices and how she set up a B Corp certified sustainable events venue in Lancashire. You can find that conversation in episode 76 of the Creating Cadence podcast. So that's all my news for now. Let's get on to today's interview with Lara Harrison of Superstar PAs. Leaving home at 16 after a challenging childhood, Lara Harrison built a career in financial services before launching her virtual assistant business, Superstar PAs, in 2015. While pregnant, she discovered her husband's infidelity, leading to a difficult divorce and single motherhood. Despite these challenges, she grew her business into a thriving enterprise with a team of 20 and six-figure revenues. In 2022, Lara made major lifestyle changes, including giving up alcohol, which transformed her life and helped her break free from unhealthy habits. Beyond business, she mentors future entrepreneurs, blending real-world experience with academic insights to enhance students' employability. Her keynote speeches share her inspiring journey from adversity to success. Lara also consults for SMEs, optimizing processes through her expertise in time management and client relations. Outside of work, she enjoys time with her blended family, reading, walking, and doing CrossFit gym. Now, Lara's company is celebrating 10 years this month, which is June 2025, and this is a really well-deserved milestone given her growth over that time, which you'll hear more about during this episode. In today's conversation, we also get to cover the concept of flexible working from a variety of different perspectives, such as health and wellness and fitting work around life commitments, to leveraging flexible working as a means to maximize productivity and efficiency through just the right amount of business support at the right time. Lara has a lovely, down-to-earth manner. She's frank about her challenges and open about her strategies for building resilience in both herself and her team. I think this conversation will resonate with you in more ways than you may realize. So if you're ready, let's dive in. So hi, Lara. Welcome to the Creating Cadence Podcast. It's really nice to have you on the show.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Me too. So you and I are both entrepreneurs in residence at the School of Business at the University of Lancashire, which was previously known as UCLan. And you joined the EIR team late last year, and we've had the chance to chat a few times at various events since then, and it's been really lovely getting to know you. And we'll get into the nitty-gritties of what you do with your business, Superstar PAs, in a minute. But first, I'm keen to find out more about you and where you find yourself in your life and work at the present moment.
So my life has been a bit of a roller coaster, but where I find myself at the moment at the grand old age of 43 is I live very happily in Penwitham in Preston with my blended family. So my partner, Anthony, my daughter, Adeline, who is coming up to 8, and my stepdaughter, Alexis, she's 17. She lives with us full time as well. So we have a very, very busy home life. Very chaotic and at times, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I've always wanted a happy family environment, and I feel very grateful for my life right now. So that's my personal life, and my background is financial services, and I started the virtual PA business, which is Superstar PAs, nearly 10 years ago. We'll be 10 years old next month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But it was by accident. I didn't plan to start out a VA business. I left banking because of cultural issues. And somebody said to me, well, why don't you just freelance as a virtual assistant until you figure out what you really want to do? So I did, because I'm really organised. And I just thought, I'll give this a go until I find what it is where I'm going to, build the rest of my career. And then by accident, or not by accident, because obviously I worked hard at it, I found myself with a full-time business after about 6 months. It was just myself running the business. And then over time, I've developed the associate model. So over the kind of like the last 8 years, I would say the associate model's grown. It started with a team of 1 associate. There's now 20 of us.
Wow.
And my role has very much changed in the business, whereas I don't manage the clients myself anymore, but I'm responsible for going out, finding the new business, matching the clients to the VAs, all the back office stuff that comes with running a business. And I'm also, as you say, an entrepreneur in residence at UCLan. So I do a lot of mentoring with students, and I do a lot of networking and business development to continue to grow the business.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like you're juggling quite a few different facets with your life.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
And because I advocate for building more supportive foundational wellbeing practices as part of being more intentional with our productivity so that we can juggle all of these things feasibly and manageably, I'm keen to know more about your personal practice, how you stay well and focused and productive. Do you have any regular practices, routines, or rituals? And how do you deal with any challenges?
I do. Yeah, I do. And they have been developed over a number of years. When I started the business, I absolutely wasn't on top of any of this whatsoever. This has kind of been developed as I've learned the effects of burnout and, how important managing boundaries are. But I do have some non-negotiables in my diary now. And when I drop my daughter at school in the morning, I go straight to CrossFit, and I have a CrossFit class that I do from 9:30 till 10:30.
Hmm.
I get home and then I start work at 10:45. I also do yoga one evening a week, and I read probably every single night for like 2 to 3 hours. That's like my meditation and like my switch off time. I also love going out walking, even if it's just, 10 minutes round the block before my CrossFit class starts. That's really important to me. And recently, because I'd been feeling the effects of burnout again from making myself too available, I suppose. That's something I've wanted to work on for a number of years, is because I had my emails on my phone, and also we're using an app called Voxer for my assistants to contact me. I felt like I was on call 24/7.
Hmm.
So the clients and associates were able to contact me at any time during the day, and I would respond during the day. But I've actually removed them from my phone over the last couple of weeks so that I only deal with work with clients or my associates when I actually sit down to work at my desk. And it's really helped me to be able to switch off more. And I've been so much more productive as well, because you waste so much time refreshing your emails to see what's coming through.
Hmm.
And then a big one for me was I gave up alcohol 3 years ago, which has been an absolute life changer for me. And I found that I've got back so much more time, because drinking takes up a lot of time,
Yeah.
not just at the time, but the following day,
The
because it
recovery.
recovery. I'm not as burnt out, but like I say, these practices are always evolving, but those are like the main things I do. And I'm very, very strict with my boundaries. So if a client asks to speak to me at 9:30, I will say no and offer some alternative times, because that's my CrossFit time. And it's the only hour in that day that I
Hmm.
get to do that. And if I say no, that will play on my mind all day then, that I've not been and done my exercise. And by the time I've got home and done all my work and picked up my daughter and taken her to all her different activities, I just physically wouldn't have the time to fit that in at any other point during the day. So it has to be done then. And at no point has a client turned around to me and said, "Well, I'm sorry, Lara, that's a big problem. And unless you can speak to me at 9:30, then I don't want to do business with you." No one's ever said that. They just
Yeah.
say, "Oh, yeah, sure, let's do 11 o'clock instead." So sometimes I think we worry about these things way, way too much,
100%.
pushing back. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I think it's really great that you're really clear on your non-negotiables. You've been clear in communicating those boundaries. You're always offering an alternative solution to your clients. So it's never a full-on no, you're providing an alternative. So
Yeah.
there's no reason why a client should have an issue with that. And you're right, we need to be more comfortable with setting those boundaries. I love everything that you've spoken about there. In particular, though, this new experiment that you've had around removing or not using your phone as part of how you do your work. I think it's so
Yeah.
critical in terms of reclaiming our attention and protecting our focus, because that phone is like a little box of cigarettes. It's full of little distractions. And so you might go in
Mm,
there to check email, but you end up finding yourself in a million different places doing a million different things that aren't necessarily about work.
very much.
That's so
Yeah.
interesting to hear how you've implemented that. And also about certain things that you've become aware of what supports you and what helps you. And that exercise slot in your day, it's actually part of your workflow, because if you don't do that, you'll probably be more stressed. As you say, you'll worry that you won't be able to fit it in another part of the day. It's an important part of what helps support you so that you can be better when you are working at the time that you need to work.
Yeah. And I actually thought with this, checking the phone, sometimes it was every 5 minutes, it was ridiculous, that it would help me so that when I got back from my CrossFit class, I would have more time, because I'd already checked those emails and dealt with those emails while I was there.
Hmm.
But actually, I found since I haven't been doing that and I've just sat down, I feel like I've got so much more time.
Yeah.
Like, not just a few minutes. I feel like I've got like an extra couple of hours worth of time in the day and more mental clarity, because I think that, spending so much time on a mobile phone can drain you mentally.
Hmm.
And I don't feel as inclined to pick it up to check Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn since I've not been doing that. If I have to pick it up, then I might just check Instagram at the same time. but I've not been going to it. It's almost like I've broke that pattern of addiction with the phone, which feels like a good place to get to, because it's something I've wanted to do for a couple of years. A bit like when I gave up alcohol, I'd wanted to do it for a couple of years and kept trying and failing and trying and failing. Then I wanted to give up sugar, and I tried and I failed with that. And, reading, wanted to get into reading and tried and failed with that. And then just eventually got there. So, sometimes you just have to keep recommitting yourself to it. And that's what I said that I was going to do at the beginning of this year, that I was really going to nail that phone addiction. And I've managed to do it over the last few weeks. And it probably feels better than when I gave up alcohol, because I feel like it was a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Actually.
Well, I think, at the time our needs and wants change, and we reach a certain level of pain or discomfort where actually making the change becomes better for us than staying in the position that we're in. And I think that once we've done one big thing, it makes it easier to make change in other areas. So I've been experimenting with being sober since January this year. So I've got a long way to go before I reach your milestones. But it's definitely helping me be more focused and less stressed and more intentional in other parts of my life. And as a result of that, I've now picked up the habit I did a Vedic meditation training course recently, and I'm devoting 20 minutes twice a day to meditating, which for me is quite a lot of time in my day. But what I'm realizing is that it's actually helping me be more focused and productive in the time that I'm allocating to work. But implementing that habit change I'm feeling is becoming easier, because I've done the thing that I initially thought was quite hard. And I think it's the same for you. You did a really big, hard thing by stopping alcohol completely because of the social pressure that we feel.
Yeah, very much so. But I think when you've done something that big, it's like, oh, well, if I could do that, then surely I can, but what I had said to myself, there was lots of things that I wanted to change, like alcohol, caffeine, sugar, my reading. I didn't say to myself, I'm going to change all these things at once, because I knew that would be absolutely impossible. I said, I'm just going to focus on the drinking. And once I feel like I've got my head around that, then I'll look at caffeine. And that's what I did 6 months after giving up drinking. And then I moved on to sugar. And just gradually I keep thinking, right, okay, I've done that one now. What do I want to do next?
Yeah. But then it becomes kind of a fun challenge, because you're pushing yourself in an enjoyable way. Yeah, that's excellent. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about your company, Superstar PAs. As you said, you started almost 10 years ago now. That's really fantastic.
Yeah.
You started on your own. You now have a team of 20. That's really huge. And you've worked, I see, with some really interesting clients, including the well-known poet and speaker Lem Sisse.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a bit about why you started the business. How did you design it to fit around your life, and how have things transformed as it's grown to include the team?
Okay, well, when I started the business, I was 34 at the time, and very much still in that mindset of, very career driven, very ambitious, and wanting to do well. And, the first couple of years, it was just me, and I was happy with it just being me. I was working probably 50 hours a week, supporting about 20 clients on my own, and really, really enjoying it. I had no plans to grow the business at all, and would have carried on, doing it that way for, many, many years. I didn't actually want any extra responsibility. I just enjoyed doing the work myself. But there was a couple of events that happened in my life which changed things, as I should say. So 8 years ago, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I found out that my husband had been having an affair.
Oh, no.
I was 5 months pregnant and he left. And I became responsible for, practically and financially for raising my daughter alone for the first 5 years of her life. And it was at that point I realised that I couldn't continue to work 50 hours a week and raise a newborn baby on my own, as well as move house, go through a divorce. And, I look back on that kind of period of my life, and, how I didn't have a nervous breakdown is quite a miracle, really. I think I was nearly there, but didn't quite have one. And so there was that happened, and that's when the associate model developed.
Right.
And then we had COVID. Okay. And again, that, kind of brought it to the forefront of my mind to continue developing the business, because all of a sudden I had a 2-year-old at home with me full time, because nurseries were closed. So again, I remember having a conversation with a client of mine. She's called Nick Pigeon. So she was one of my first clients, and she was a business coach. And one of the things she teaches is, how businesses can create passive income. And I remember saying, let's get on the phone and have a chat, because I can see that you're sinking. And I think you really need to push on this, creating a passive income and the associate model, because it's going to, really change your life. And that's what I've worked on over a number of years. It's the point where, there is a team of 20. We support, probably 60 clients, some on a regular basis, some on an ad hoc project basis. But it's meant that probably for the last 4 years, since my daughter's been at school, that I've only had to work really 2 or 3 hours a day. If I didn't do anything, the business would still pay me. But because things change all the time, I'm very mindful of constantly doing business development work, finding new clients, looking at ways that we can improve things, because industries change and people change. Training, how can I help train my associates so that they're in a better position to do their jobs? There's always lots of different things I'm looking at. That's meant that I've been able to drop my daughter at school. It's meant I've been able to pick her up. She's never regularly been to a breakfast or an after school club. On the odd occasion when I was on my own, but if I had an early or a late meeting, it's meant that I can take her to her activities that she wants to do after school. So it's just given me all this flexibility, which if I'd have been in what I call like an office proper job, Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, it would have been impossible. My life would have been so much harder to manage at that point. If I'd have been dropping her up before and after school clubs, she'd have been there from 7:30 till 6 o'clock. I would never have had a chance to go to the gym. I wouldn't have been able to spend any time with her. I get to take her to a swimming class every week. She just got her 25-meter badge this week. Well, I was there to see that and see how happy she was.
Fantastic.
Whereas if it was the other way around, then I probably would have been relying on grandparents to take her to there, and so it doesn't earn me millions, but it earns me enough. And for me, that's enough. I don't need to earn any more. I can pay the mortgage, I can pay the bills. My time with her and my time to do the things that I like are worth more to me.
Yeah.
I don't want a bigger house. I don't want a better car. I don't want lots of fancy clothes and handbags and fancy holidays. We have a family holiday once a year. We do a couple of UK breaks a couple of times a year, and that's enough. And I couldn't ever imagine going back to that corporate environment where I wouldn't have that control over my own life.
Such a good point, how very often in those traditional working systems, it's just so rigid. It doesn't allow us that flexibility and that freedom to be able to fit work around life and create more meaning for us, because we'll enjoy our work more when we are able to fit it around our life and to be able to be there for the important milestones that you've spoken about. Because our identity isn't just about what we do for work. It's about all the facets of our life. So super important point that you've made there. So creating cadence is about how we build better rhythm, pace, and flow in our life. And we've touched on this a little bit. One way of creating cadence is this idea of flexible working practices, which is also the theme of this season. So I want to dive a little bit deeper on this now. Your business model is by its nature about flexibility and flexible working styles. And what does that actually look like in practice for your team? What does a typical day or week look like for them as an associate?
Yeah, so all of my team are all self-employed contractors. I haven't employed because, one, it doesn't work for them because they have contracts with other clients and other things going on in their life. They, like me, they don't want to be employed by somebody. They want the flexibility. And also, at that time in my life where I was growing the business and I had so many other responsibilities, I didn't want the responsibility of employing so many different people at any one time. I felt it would have completely overwhelmed me and burnt me out. And it's worked really well for me and my associates. My associates work on a part-time basis for me because they have clients and projects outside of Superstar PAs, either with other agencies or with, they have their own direct clients. And they support our clients from anything from like an hour a week to 10 hours a week. And I don't expect them to be online Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. I just say to them, as long as the work that you promised your client is done in the time that you've promised to do it in, I don't care whether you're working at 6 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night. If that's what you want to do to fit it around your life, I don't need to know when you're taking the dog to the vet. I don't need to know when you've got a doctor's appointment. As long as the work is getting done, the work's getting done well, and the client is happy, that's all I'm bothered about. And the associates are happy as well. I feel like do you need anything from me? Could I support you better? Do you need training in anything? And if they ask for it, then I will always go to, great lengths to try and support them with that. We've just had a situation recently where an associate needed some training on Zero. So we've organised for that, and it's made her life so much easier, because if she's happier, she'll do a better job and the client will be happier. So the only thing I ask of them is, if you're going to be on holiday for, a week or a couple of weeks, let me know a month in advance so we can get you some cover for the client. The client doesn't have to manage without you in that time. And also so that they're not coming back off their holiday to a load of work that's built up in the last 2 weeks. They can take a break knowing that everything's taken care of. I also say to them that because of the way that I work, I'll sometimes send emails early in the morning or late at night. But I say you're under no obligation to respond to those messages when I send them. You reply to them in your working hours. And if it's something urgent, I would call you. But it's very, very rare that there's an occasion like that. I mean, we're not brain surgeons. There's never anything that urgent. I think we've probably had 2 urgent issues in the last 10 years. And at that point, I've just picked the phone up to them to ask them, what's happening. Yeah, and that's probably a very brief summary.
What I love about what you've said there is that level of autonomy and trust that has been built with the team that you work with. You don't need to be micromanaging them. You trust them to get the work done. You're giving them the flexibility and the autonomy to work at a time that suits them. So that obviously supports their well-being and their sense of satisfaction, and in terms of the work that they're doing as well. And this is very much an important part of more flexible working practices, is we do the work we do. We fulfill the role we're meant to fulfill, but we can do it at a time that suits us, that works for us. As long as that work is getting done, is delivered to the caliber that is expected. It doesn't have to happen in a place at a time. And this is an important part of that flexibility. You set the protocols, the guardrails, people know what they have to operate within, but they've got the freedom to be able to deliver that work in a way that suits them. So thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, if we look at this from the customer side, how does that flexibility of service help your clients? I see that you have on your website, it mentions different business phases that might require different levels or types of support. So what types of clients do your teams typically support, and how does that flexibility of service help them to keep moving forward in their business?
So typical clients of ours these days are kind of solopreneurs or SMEs, and they're typically like individuals that have been in a corporate job and they've come away from that world because they've either been made redundant, they've had a family, or they've just, there's been circumstances in their life that they've thought, I just don't want to be in that environment anymore. But they're like, but you know what, I can do this on my own. I'm really good at this. So they go, right, I'm going to give it a bash. But what they're used to is obviously doing their job, but they're also used to having an admin team when they've been working for a company. So they have somebody running the admin side of things and running the operational side of things. So what we find is that we see these solopreneurs and SMEs very quickly burn out because they're having to do so much more, and not just doing so much more, but doing things because they're not used to doing those things. They don't understand it. They don't enjoy it. So we basically kind of take away all of that stuff that they don't like doing to basically give them a lot more time, reduce the stress levels, and it gives them that time to focus on what they should be doing and that mental clarity, because you can very easily be bogged down with like admin and lists and things that you have to do, that you can look at a list and you kind of get, find yourself in like freeze mode because you don't know where to start and you procrastinate, so it never gets done. Whereas all of that stuff on that list can be given to a VA so that you can focus on where you need to be in front of your clients, business strategy, business growth, looking at any training issues that you might have in your company. And in terms of the flexible way, so because these are small companies, they either don't want to hire somebody full time because they're just starting out themselves. They might not want the responsibility. They don't want the headaches that come with employing somebody. And plus, they just don't have 35 hours worth of work a week. They might not even have 10 hours of worth of work for somebody. So if you can get a VA that will do 5 hours a week for you, and when we onboard clients, the client and the VA has what we call like a kickoff call.
Right.
And there's a couple of guides that we share on there about how to make the best of their working relationship, and things they discuss before they get started on like boundaries and when will they check in together. So it could be they decide that, these are the tasks that have to be done in that week. The client doesn't care when they're done, as long as they're done at some point, or they want a certain task done on a Tuesday or a certain one done on a Friday. And the VA will plan that into their workload appropriately. and they'll say, and let's just catch up for 10 minutes on a Monday to see where we are and see if the VA has any questions. So they agree between them what the working relationship is going to be like. So one working relationship with one client and VA can be completely different to another. So I have a VA, but I don't check in with her every week. I don't feel I need to. If I need her, I'll just email her or send her a voice note because that works better for me.
Yeah.
And if there's a problem, she'll voice note me back. So it's very different. It comes down to what that partnership, what they want out of that partnership, I suppose. But it's very, very flexible.
It sounds like there's, the opportunity to work more asynchronously. As you said, you send voice notes back and forth. So that's done in your own time, which is really helpful for focus and productivity as well. And how your associates can grow with the business owner in terms of how, as their business grows, as their requirements change, they potentially can afford to or have more requirements for that person to support them for more hours in a week.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, do they need to be multidisciplinary in terms of the types of skills that they bring, or do you have quite specialist requirements with your VAs?
So probably 90% of my VAs have been recruited into the business, haven't had VA experience,
Right.
But what they've had is they've come from corporate or commercial backgrounds and they've worked in some very senior jobs, some of them, but they've got all the transferable skills and they've got all those personality attributes that make a really good VA. So a lot of the time, like the systems that we use, they won't be familiar with them, but they're really easy to teach. But what you can't teach is somebody to have those attributes, that wanting to do a good job, those communication skills, that sense of accountability and responsibility. An example would be if you say to the client, you're going to have it to them Tuesday, they get it by Monday, all those sorts of things, not going AWOL. So those are the sort of attributes I look for. We do have a really thorough recruitment process, which again has evolved over the years. And when I'm onboarding clients, I don't think necessarily about the skills that a VA needs to have. I think about whether the personalities are going to work well together, because the skills and the systems can be trained, and we'll always do our best to make sure that they do have that experience in those systems. But if you've got two different personalities and they're not going to work well together, it's just going to explode. So if I can get the personality matching right, then I know everything else will just fall very easily into place. We cover any training in-house here, so it's not something the client needs to worry about. And the client's not usually that bothered. Again, as long as the job's getting done, the client is not bothered. They don't want to be taking on any more headaches of having to train people or show them how to do something. So we look after all that at this end. Our job here is to take away those hassles and not add to them.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Reducing the friction, so important. All right, so we're on to the final question now, which is all about lessons learned in both life and business. What words of wisdom or key insights can you share with my listeners based on your personal experience so far?
So I've thought about this for a long time because there's so much that I can share. But the biggest one, which I've come a cropper many, many times, not just in my personal life, but also in my business life, is when I've not listened to my gut feeling. So if I've been speaking to a potential client and I get the feeling that something's just not quite right, but then I think, oh, no, it'd be okay. We'll take it on. It'll be okay. It could be that, maybe we'd not had a great month the month before. So I was just thinking, purely for financial gain, let's just bring this client on and, get some cash flow into the business. And it's always turned around to bite me in the ass, always. So it's been a big learning curve, one that I became a cropper on last year. I ignored a feeling I had about a client and he didn't pay his last invoice and still owes us about £3,000. But I've made peace with that because I should have listened to my gut. I should have Googled him, which I didn't. And what I did, instead of putting all my energy into trying to recover this money from him, I just accepted that I'm never going to see this money again. He doesn't have any assets and he's got unsatisfied CCJs. So the chances of me getting it back are very, very slim. So what I did instead was put all my energy into business development. So the end of last year was an absolute car crash, but because I put so much energy into generating new business and all the growth this year, I've managed to get us back into a really good position. So listen to your gut and don't waste your time, on negative things. Just say you're not going to get involved in that and take a step back.
Very sound advice. And I think that, on top of the being in tune with your intuition. How we feel about the client is as important as how they feel about us. It has to be a good fit. And, I've had to learn that lesson as well about saying no when I realize that actually this is not the right client for me. And I can see that things are not going to end well if I continue.
Yeah.
So sometimes it is about being confident enough to say no, even though you're not quite sure, where the next client might be coming from.
Yeah.
So sound advice. Thank you so much. And I have one more quick question for you. Do you service people specifically in the Northwest or the whole of the UK or globally? What's your market?
Globally. So we have clients in the UK mainly, but we have a lot of clients in the US. And historically, we've had clients in Spain and Australia as well. So we can help anybody anywhere in the world.
Fantastic. Well, I have listeners in 30 countries. So who knows?
Right.
You never know what
Brilliant.
might happen.
Yeah.
All right. So where can people find you online, Lara?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Lara Harrison, or Instagram. Our Instagram is Superstar PAs, and also our website is www.superstarpas, which is superstarpas.com.
Lara, thank you so much. It's been so lovely having this conversation with you.
Yeah, thanks, Mish. Great to speak to you.
There are so many valuable lessons around resilience in this conversation with Lara. From the importance of developing a robust personal practice to support your health, well-being and productivity, to setting boundaries around your availability to avoid burnout, and lots of lovely good nuggets in between. I love how Lara has intentionally made flexible working central to her business model, not only because it's a necessity for her life commitments, but because it helps her to have a more meaningful life too. So I'll be back in a few weeks with the finale episode for this season, which is an interview with Abigail Best of Lemongrass Marketing and PR, where we talk about 4-day working and the benefits of embedding sustainability into every part of your business, plus lots more. Until then, keep moving forwards with courage, curiosity, and cadence. And a few quick things before you go. Don't forget that you can get up to 48% off a Magic Mind subscription using my magic code, Cadence APR. Head to magicmind.com/Cadence APR. If you like the show, please share the love by rating it where you listen to it and telling all your friends. You can find out more about what I do at creatingcadence.co, and you can buy my book at thecadenceeffect.com. If you're interested in being a sponsor for the podcast and you have a product or service that aligns with the ethos of creating cadence, intentional productivity, sustainable business, or regenerative working practices, then drop us a line at hello@creatingcadence.co so we can have a chat. The podcast is hosted on Acast and available wherever you listen to your pods, including YouTube. It's edited on Descript, and the current groovy podcast music track is 184 by Skittle from Blue Dot Sessions. So until next time, bye for now.